Hello everyone and welcome back to Nathan and Deer's Guide to Everything. Today we're going to be kicking off a new series where we look to recreate legendary characters from pop culture for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The idea behind this is to fuel your imagination for your own characters, or if you really want to embody your favourite character, this should give you some resources to do that. We're going to be creating weapons, abilities, subclasses, feats, everything we need to create a legendary character. And on that note, welcome to the Legend Forge. So first up for this series we have Trevor Belmont from the Castlevania series. Season 4 just came out. It's available on Netflix to watch. If you haven't seen it, you're a fan of anime or just gothic horror, I would highly recommend you watch Castlevania. It's a fantastic show. There may be some minor spoilers in this creation as well, so just bear that in mind if you are watching and you don't want anything spoiled at all. And so a quick breakdown on how this is going to work. In D&D, in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, there's something discussed in the Dungeon Master's Guide called Tiers of Play. And it goes from basically levels 1 to 4, means you're a local hero. 5 to 10 is a heroic status of the realm. Then I believe 11 to 16, you're considered a master of the realm. And then further beyond that, so 17 to 20, you're considered a master of the world, but I'm going to refer to that as like a legendary status, because that's where I think a legendary status would be earned, or where some of these characters would fit in their final forms, as it were. So first up, we're going to start off with Trevor Belmont, who we're going to start off at the second tier of play, which is level 9, and that it would put him in the hero category. So let's jump into it. Okay, so to create these characters, we're going to be using a lot of homebrew content. I have plenty of books unlocked on my main account, so hopefully we've got everything we need to be able to fully embody this character. And obviously this is just my opinion. Hopefully this just helps you and gives you inspiration for your own character. And if you would build it differently, then tell me how in the comments. I'd love to hear from you guys, but this is just what I'm going with. So first up we go with race, and we're going to go with a variant human for Trevor. And that's just so I could get a feat straight out the gate, which I think is functional for him. So ability score increase, we went with dexterity and constitution out the gate. For his proficiency skill, we went with history, due to his family history in monster hunting and whatnot. And for the feat, I went with dual wielder. In the show, we always see him with either a dagger or a short sword and a whip in the other hand is usually how you see him. So we've gone with this because it gives us a +1 bonus to AC, makes it harder to hit if we've got 2 separate melee weapons, and we can use 2-weapon fighting even when a one-handed melee weapon you're wielding isn't light. In our case, both of ours will be, so it doesn't matter so much, but that's why we're taking it. Okay, next up we have the class. So you can see, to start out, we've gone for a multi-class straight out the gate, which is a swashbuckler rogue and a champion fighter. And let's just break this down as to why. So we'll start with the rogue. 4 levels in rogue, and I imagine you could do this in any order you like. I would probably look to go rogue first, I think. And as you become a more established character, more established fighter, you start dipping into the fighter pool. We went with rogue because proficiencies, for one. He's very acrobatic, he's very perceptive, and he's very athletic. Just generally, he fights monsters, vampires, whatever it might be. So this seemed appropriate. We also get expertise, which makes us even better at those things. So I went with history and acrobatics, which again, history of monster hunting, and I mean in anime they're very acrobatic always anyway. We get sneak attack. I always find that in the show at least, Trevor's, whenever he's attacking something, it's always pretty deadly. He doesn't have to hit them more than once usually before they go down, so I think sneak attack just makes sense. Bonus damage whenever you have advantage on something. Thieves can, not really relevant, it's just a bonus of the class. Cunning action, which is fantastic. It basically means as a bonus action we can choose to dash, disengage or hide, which just raises that bar for the anime style of just moving quickly around the screen as fast as they can, basically. And I love that. It just means we're going to get hit less and be more deadly. So good stuff. And at third level we get to pick an archetype, and I went with the Swashbuckler. It's a fantastic, if you're considering playing a rogue, Swashbuckler I think is probably the strongest. I don't have much experience myself, but reading through all the classes in preparation for this, I think Swashbuckler is pretty damn good. We get Fancy Footwork, which is you learn how to land a strike and then slip away without reprisal. During your turn, if you make a melee attack against a creature, that creature can't make opportunity attacks against you for the rest of the turn. So you jump in, stab something, run away, bonus action disengage or dash, and you're away and they can't hit you. Incredible. And we also get Rakish Audacity. So you can give yourself a bonus to initiative rolls equal to our charisma modifier, which isn't going to be incredibly high, spoilers, but a little bit. You also gain an additional way to use your sneak attack. You don't need advantage on the attack to use it. If we are within 5 feet of the creature and I don't have disadvantage and there's no other creatures around it, we get sneak attack. So we're just singling enemies out, and that's what we're going to be doing for the most part. So we always have that extra sneak attack damage, just make us super, super deadly. I think it's a great addition. And ability score improvement, we go Dex and Con, same as with our racial bonuses. Just to raise our health and make us more lethal as a rogue. And Fighter for 5 levels is what I've got in here. For a few more hit points, proficiencies in martial weapons, which we'll probably definitely need if you're just playing a normal game with him. You may change weapons throughout the course of a campaign. Fighting style, we went with 2-weapon fighting. So when we engage in 2-weapon fighting, which will be always as Trevor Belmont, we can add our ability modifier to the damage of the second attack. Second Wind, we can regain some hit points as a bonus action, pretty good. If we get knocked down, we always get back up. He seems to do that quite a lot in the show, so that's good. We get Action Surge at level 2 as well, which is a very powerful fighter ability. The bread and butter of the class basically means we can take another action whenever we like, once per long rest, which is amazing. We can just really lay into something with a load of attacks. For the Martial Archetype at level 3, I went for Champion, mainly to make us more deadly again at just killing things as fast as possible, and that is for the improved critical. So we scored a critical hit on a 19 or 20, so we're going to be a crit machine with our sneak attacks and all kind of things like that. It's going to be really, really deadly, and he is in the show. That's the whole point. You get Martial Versatility as level 4, which means whenever we level up and we can get an ability score improvement, we can change our fighting style, which would be really useful in a real game of D&D. If we weren't sticking straight down one line with Trevor Belmont, because he uses the same weapons always basically throughout the series, if we ever wanted to change and you were playing a similar class to this, you can do. And so at a 4th level we also get ability score improvement, and we went with a feat this time around, and we went for Martial Adept, just to give the feel of the character a little bit more, I guess, a tactical advantage when fighting creatures. So I chose Riposte. When a creature misses you with a melee attack, you can use your reaction and expend 1 superiority die to make a melee weapon attack against the creature. If you hit, you add the superiority die to the attack's damage roll. So superiority die come from the Battle Master fighter class, I believe, and it allows you to do loads of maneuvers. We're just getting 2 of them from this feat, basically. You get 1 superiority die, and so we'd roll that and see what we get. I also went for Trip Attack. When you hit a creature with a weapon attack, you're going to expend 1 superiority die to attempt to knock the target down. You add the superiority die to the attack's damage roll, and if the target is large or smaller, it must make a strength saving throw. On a failed save, you knock the target prone. And this is influenced by, I think it's in episode 8 of the latest season, Trevor takes, I will try not to spoil it as best I can, takes someone down and kills them while they're on the floor, basically. So I just thought it fits perfectly with that. And at level 5, we get the extra attack, which is vital. And it's as simple as it is, we get an extra attack. Next up, we're going to take a look at the ability scores. And I went for what I found online was like a heroic set of ability scores. So that's standard of 18, 16, 14, 12, 10 and 10. So no glaring weaknesses, and I think that's fair for Trevor. I don't think he has any glaring weaknesses. So we put 18 into Dex, 16 into Strength, 14 into Con, 12 into Intelligence, 10 into Wisdom, and 10 into Charisma. And I think early on in the show, this is bang on. With our bonuses, it takes us up to 20 Dexterity and 16 Constitution with all our bonuses. So that's a fantastic start for this character. I say a start at level 9, so quite apt at what they do already. Description is not overly complicated, really. We went with Guild Artisan, Guild Merchant, because that's something that's fairly readily available, I thought. But this gives us Insight and Persuasion, so that's just having... I mean, at the start of the show, Trevor's a little bit kind of down in the dumps and down about the world, and he seems to not have the best relationship with people around him. But he is from a guild, as it were. The Belmont crest, the Belmont name, has a lot of sway in the world, it seems like, mostly negative towards the start of the series. But that gives us Insight and Persuasion. I gave him proficiency with Brewer's Supplies, because I thought that was hilarious, because he likes a drink in the show. And languages, Draconic. I thought maybe old books might be in the arcane language of Draconic, but I guess don't read too much into that, because I don't think he speaks any of the languages in the show. So here we are on the character sheet, and you can see our bonuses in the center. History and Acrobatics is at a 13 out the gate at level 9, this is mind. And if we take a look at our equipment, I'll show you what I've made. So a standard homebrew item for Trevor is going to be the Belmont Crest, which I've created, and it's kind of a slightly stronger version of the Orcs' Relentless Endurance feature. They get this just as their race. I've changed it slightly, and by all means, these characters I make, as the series is called, Legend Forge, they are legendary, so they might be a little OP in places, so just be careful about adding these items to your games, which will be available in the homebrew section of D&D Beyond, so enjoy these should you use them. It's called Belmont's Resolve. When you are reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead and can make a melee attack against any creature within range. You can't use this feature again until you finish a long rest. So if you were to go down, you just have that second wind. It's really, really cool. And I've got a nice little quote in there from the show. The thing I'm really excited about, though, is the whip that he wields in the show, which is magical. After a little bit of research, I found out it's known as the Whip of Alchemy, crafted, I believe, with like the soul of a loved one that was turned into a vampire, someone in the Belmont family history, essentially. But it's a magic weapon with a +1 to attack and damage rolls, and it has like a bleed effect that I've created for it, inspired by one of the new monsters in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, the new source book. If the target is a creature, mind, and has blood, it suffers a lingering wound that causes it to take 3 or 1d6, whichever you prefer, damage at the start of each of its turns. Each time the user hits the wounded target with this attack, the damage dealt by the wound increases by 3 or 1d6. The wound ends if the target regains hit points, or if a creature uses an action to staunch the wound, which requires a DC 12 Wisdom Medicine check. So the idea behind this is that there's a lot of decapitations, I think that's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, in the show, essentially Trevor often whips out people's eyes, people's fingers off, people's hands off, and the idea is that would be gushing blood, obviously, so I kind of wanted to channel that a little bit, and I put the average damage in there as 3, just so you don't have to keep rolling dice every time this comes around. You can just do a flat damage rate, which a lot of those people, including me, that are bad at math, would just prefer to have. And also at this level he gets a studded leather +1, which isn't particularly crazy. That's just a standard item that I feel like he would have, having been a level 9 adventurer. Also a cloak of billowing, because anime, and if you don't know about this item, it's amazing. While wearing this cloak, you can use a bonus action to make it billow dramatically. Very anime indeed. If you're in a standoff, use it, definitely. And he has a short sword out the gate. So our main weapons at this level would be the Whip of Alchemy and the short sword. I think it's time to move on to the next tier of play. Let's do it. So now we're in the second tier of play, and this would be the Master tier, as it's referred to, which I believe is 11 to 16 levels. I went with a level 14 character for Trevor here. So this would be, I don't know, maybe end of season 2, start of season 3 kind of vibe, when he's really getting into his rhythm, as it were. And everything's the same other than the class levels, obviously, because that's what we've bumped up. So we're now actually surpassing the fighter with more rogue. We get Uncanny Dodge at 5th level. We're going to level 8, by the way, in rogue. And when an attacker hits us with an attack, you can use your reaction to halve the attack's damage against you. So we just take less damage once. Really good. More expertise at 6th level, which we definitely need. And I chose Athletics and Perception. I think by the time you get to this point in Trevor's story, in my mind, he was a little more sober, a little more perceptive, and definitely more athletic, back used to fighting night beasts and vampires again. And at 7th level, Evasion. So it just leans again into this anime super quick, never get hit thing, although he does in the show, and he's just a human, but the idea is that you don't want to be hit. The health pool isn't massive. So Evasion, you can nimbly dodge out of the way of certain area effects, such as an Ancient Red Dragon's Fiery Breath or an Ice Storm spell. So it's basically any ability that forces you to make a dexterity saving throw that is an area of effect. If you succeed, you take 0 damage instead of half, but if you fail, you only take half damage. So just survivability all the way. And finally, level 8, I went for a double intelligence boost. And this is, in my mind, due to how many new creatures he'd seen and defeated, the new knowledge he has. He can use it wisely, basically, and pop it into his intelligence. He's more book read now, thanks to Cypher in the show and things like that. And so we put 1 level into Fighter as well, which gets us another ability score improvement, and we put both of those into Strength. Now he's well practiced in versing the night creatures once more. So we'll go straight to the character sheet now, and I'll show you the differences. So back on the character sheet, you can start to see this is really starting to take shape. We have expertise in Perception, History, Athletics and Acrobatics, and the bonuses for those are all double digits now. Crazy stuff. Plus 10 to dexterity saving throws, so we're basically always going to succeed, or you would hope anyway. Strength's now sitting at an 18, Dex is still 20, Con is still 16, Intelligence now has a plus 2 modifier, being at 14, and Wisdom and Charisma are both at 0. The more exciting thing though this time around is again some new equipment at this level. So taking a look, some spoilers you can probably see already. I've created Belmont's Vampire Killer, which is the name of the Morning Star stroke whip that can set on fire with holy fire and radiant damage, and I've created it in here, inspired by the Holy Avenger standard D&D item. This has taken a slight nerf though. It is an artifact rated weapon, as it is the only one of its kind. You get a plus 2 bonus to attack and damage rolls made with this magic weapon. When you hit a fiend or undead with it, that creature takes an extra 1d10 damage, radiant damage, and causes the target to ignite in holy flames. So I wanted to keep this kind of bleed effect, but in a different capacity this time around. At the start of each of its turns, the target must make a Constitution saving throw. On a failed save, it takes 1d6 radiant damage. On a successful save, the effect ends. If a target or a creature within 5 feet of it uses an action to put out the flames, or if some other effect douses the flames, the effect ends. So it's the same as the bleed, you have to put it out basically. I've taken some inspiration from Matt Mercer's creation, The Vestiges of Divergence. In his campaign guides, campaign settings, some of the artifacts in there have dormant, awakened and exalted states, and I feel like that's a good way to show the progression of an item, of a character it may be. And so we're using that here to kind of represent the growth of Trevor and his ability with the Vampire Killer. So in its awakened state, which is this plus 2 version, reducing a vampire to 0 hit points with this weapon does not allow them to use their Misty Escape feature, and they instead implode in a flash of light and are destroyed. So I may throw a summary up on screen here, but essentially the Misty Escape feature, whenever you kill a vampire, turns into mist, really hard to hit, and it basically tries to fly back to its resting place so it can heal up again and basically do the cycle all over again, live forever. This will disable that and they will just implode into nothing basically. Quite strong against vampires. Additionally, the tip of the Morning Star will glow faintly in the presence of undead. You can sense if there are any undead within 30 feet of you and you can't be surprised by them. So again, this came from just doing research into the item from the games. It was said that this item could sense itself when there was unholiness around it, so I thought that'd be a nice little feature to throw in there as well. The other things I've added for the level 14 version are the Boots of Haste, to again lean more into that anime, super quick, can't be touched style. And the Boots of Haste are a standard Dungeons & Dragons item from the DMG, I believe. And essentially, you can double your walking speed. You have advantage on dexterity saving throws, which we almost don't need at this point, but we'll take it. You get a +2 to AC, and we gain an additional action on each of his turns, but it can only be used to make the attack, dash, disengage, hide, or use an object action. It lasts for a minute, so you're supercharged for a minute. I imagine a lot of combats won't even last that long. And this, just the thought of in my mind, if you've watched the anime, you know, the characters just glide around the screen. I think this just plays perfectly into exactly what we're trying to do with Trevor's character here. I also just upgraded his short sword because he would have found some loot along the way. Just turn it into a magic weapon with a +1 bonus. So now we move on to the final stage of this. Trevor Belmont in his final form, the legendary status as I'm calling it, and the highest tier of play. So let me show you. So once again we find ourselves on the class screen, and I'll try not to spend too long reading all this text out, but it's necessary, I guess, if you guys want to know exactly how to build this. And so we went for a couple more levels in Rogue. We gained Panache at level 9, which makes us extraordinarily beguiling. As an action, you can make a charisma persuasion check contested by a creature's wisdom insight check. The creature must be able to hear you, and the two of you must share a language. If you succeed on the check and the creature is hostile to you, it has disadvantage on attack rolls against targets other than you, and can't make opportunity attacks against other targets than you. So what this does essentially, and I think towards the end of it, Trevor does have this quite cocky personality, and I quite like that. So you can goad a creature into fighting you and you only, and then that's where our initial, what was it called, rakish audacity feature kind of comes in, singling out a target and just doing loads of sneak attack damage every time you hit them. So that complements it perfectly. And at level 10 we get another ability score improvement, and I went with Wisdom, and that's just from being out on the road with Cypher, just experiencing the world, and I just feel like you'd be a bit more wise by the end of your adventure, so I think that fits perfectly. And even more improvements in the champion fighter section. We got an ability score improvement, which we discussed last time. We also get remarkable athlete at level 7. So any more strength, dexterity, or con ability checks, not saving throws, just the ability checks, mean we're now half proficient in those. So it just makes us more well-rounded with any physical exertion, which makes sense. We can also jump further. I don't find that comes into play very often, but there you go. At level 8, ability score improvement, we're now even healthier, double constitution buff, just to make him more hardy in combat. At level 9 we get Indomitable, so if we fail a saving throw we can just choose to re-roll it. That's a very legendary character vibe is what I get from that, where if you fail something you just somehow push through and get a second chance at defeating the big bad. And finally, additional fighting style, and this is minor spoilers for season 4, so skip to the end of the video if you don't want to see it now. Trevor finds an item called a combat cross, which is from the games, but they kind of took a slightly different approach in the series, and it was this chakram weapon that could be thrown or used in melee. It appears to have some radiant damage to it. It sets vampires and night beasts on fire with a cool blue flame, and it's almost like a discus that he throws and chops loads of people's heads off. But it's unique, an artifact, and amazing, and I've made that as well, and that's specifically why we went for thrown fighting style, so we can use that even better. It gives us a +2 bonus to damage rolls, basically. So you can clearly see now our bonuses are absolutely bonkers. +14 to hit with our main weapons. Our saving throws are crazy. All our statistics are crazy, and then a +17 to acrobatics. So just go crazy with it. 23 passive perception, really, really useful. It's the most rolled ability in the game. So that +13 with expertise, just crazy. So I've already gone over most of the abilities. So let's just look straight at the equipment one more time. the Vampire Killer has had another upgrade. And now I've made this homebrew friendly, so you can just add this straight into your games. This is actually a re-recording because I made a mistake on one of my homebrew items and actually request to get it removed. It was a whole thing. Anyway, here we are. I'll read it out for you. So the bonus to attack and damage rolls has been upgraded to a +3, which is fairly standard. You do 2d10 radiant damage and 2d6 radiant damage now with the Holy Fire. And in its exalted state, you still cancel the Misty Escape feature. And the Morning Star will now glow in the presence of undead and fiends within 60 feet, and that's just due to the more of the Night Beast aura, essentially. And I've created a small ability called Beyond the Infinite Corridor, which is relevant to the series. I'll try not to spoil anything too much there. But essentially this is a changed version of the spell Banishing Smite, which paladins get. So I'll just read it out for you. Vampire Killer crackles with force, and your next attack deals an extra 5d10 force damage to the target. Additionally, if the attack reduces the target to 50 hit points or fewer, you banish it. If the target is native to a different plane of existence other than the one you're on, the target disappears, returning to its home plane. If the target is native to the plane that you're on, the creature vanishes into another random plane or harmless demi-plane decided by the DM. While there, the target is incapacitated. It remains there for 24 hours, at which point the target can make a successful DC 20 intelligence saving throw or be bound there for another 24 hours. It can repeat the saving throw every 24 hours, appearing in the space it left on a success. If the affected creature is a fiend or undead, instead of being banished, they are destroyed. You can use this ability once per long rest. So I hope you guys enjoy that. For as much as it's worth, I think it's very accurate to what you see in the animated series, so I hope it comes in useful for you guys if you want to play this. Next up we have the Combat Cross, which is an entirely freshly made weapon. It comes from the basis of a boomerang from the homebrew. It is also an artifact because it's one of a kind, and he says that in the show. It's a +3 magic weapon. And I put a little bit of flavour text in there. So the Combat Cross is a chakram-like weapon carved from exotic metals and lapis for a legendary vampire hunter. It can be used in melee or thrown. On a hit, it deals 1d4 slashing damage. Additionally, if the target is a fiend or undead, an additional 3d4 radiant damage. And on a miss, it returns to your hand. I've also created another ability for this, which is Predator's Bane. When attacking a vampire or any variant of vampiric spawn with the Combat Cross, you can make your attacks with advantage. Additionally, any vampiric creature hit with the Combat Cross must succeed on a DC 15 intelligence saving throw. On a failure, they cannot take reactions until the start of their next turn. You also gain resistance to necrotic damage. So in the show, the vampires are described as predators. They don't share human eyesight anymore. And this weapon, the Combat Cross, when spun in the face of a vampire, apparently confuses their vision because it's not the same as ours, and so I thought having advantage against those specific creatures fits perfectly. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that as well. That's another one of my own inventions. It's available for homebrew for everyone. So the Belmont crest is still there. We've upgraded the studded leather a little bit more. The boots of haste are there. The short sword is still there, and the cloak of billowing. But that is it. Trevor Belmont, the legend he is. If you would have made this differently, please let me know in the comment section down below. If you liked it and you want to see more of these, please do let me know. I've got a few incoming, all Castlevania inspired at the moment. But yeah, this has been Nathan Deer's Guide to Everything. Welcome to the Legend Forge, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.